Welcome to Pera's Playbook. This is your host, Alex Pera. Let's open up our playbook and see who our guest is. Please enjoy. Welcome to episode 155 of Pera's Playbook. Today we're joined by Jodi Stecyk. He's a stuntman, stunt coordinator, actor. He's been a coordinator for Snowpiercer and Riverdale, among other projects. He's done stunts for Deadpool, Godzilla, Inception, Tooth Fairy. He was a stunt double for Tom Hardy in The Revenant. He's also had acting roles in Goon and Metallica Through The Never, among other projects. So we're happy to have Jodi with us today. How's it going?
Good, Alex. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I've been wanting to dive into stunts a little bit more. Had one stuntman on, got a couple others coming up, but I feel like it's a side of the industry, obviously, that's really important, but it doesn't always get talked about. I mean, I personally don't know a lot about the stunt world. They're always buried deeper on the credits of the movies, and
Yeah.
sometimes you see the stunt people, but you often don't. It's all the behind the scenes stuff. So it's an interesting side of film and TV that I kind of want to dive into a little bit more on the podcast.
Yeah, for sure. We're kind of it goes back to the old Fall Guy song, Unknown Stuntman. We're there, but we're not really there, right? So
Right. But none of it could be done without you guys, because I'm sure a lot of those actors, obviously they're not trained and they don't want to be doing some of that dangerous stuff. There's a few actors that do their own stunts, but definitely not the norm.
there's a few that are definitely more physical. It's like anything, it's everything's always based on your ability, and there's more. Some actors are more physical than others. Some, are very, very happy when we show up, and they're happy we're here, that we're going to take whatever action that their character's supposed to do. And then sometimes you get a weird kind of response from some of them, kind of, what are you doing here? You don't need to be here. I can do this. So. And it's part of our job is to kind of, you know, uh, how do I say that? Massage that relationship between an actor and a stunt performer, because sometimes they're not always super warm, but for the most part they are, for sure. Like I'd say
Right.
90% of the time.
Yeah. And I'm assuming, depending on the role, right, you're going to have more interaction with certain cast members. Like if you're a stunt double, you're going to be interacting with that person a little bit more than if you were driving a car
Absolutely.
for a scene.
Yeah, absolutely. Stunt doubles tend to have a more personal one-on-one with their actor, because a lot of the times, when I stunt double someone, I'm speaking with them, I'm watching how they move, I'm asking them, if there's a scene, and oddly enough, sometimes you're shooting the stunt and the fight before you shoot the aftermath, and the aftermath might be your guy has a broken leg, or he's hurt, or he's upset, or it's just anything kind of towards, script wise, what's written. So we have to kind of talk to them and kind of ask, like, hey, how do you want to move? How do you want to do this? How do you want to do that? Or if I do this, can you mimic that action when you do it, just at a safer level, right? So there has to be a lot of communication between the actor and the stunt performer, the stunt double, for sure. Versus, like you said, if I was just going in as like a cop who, kicks down a door, runs in and grabs an actor or grabs another stunt guy, there's not really a whole lot of interaction. It's mostly with the director. He's telling us what to do, what the scenes should look like. The stunt coordinator is also telling us what to do. So there's a little bit less interaction as a one-on-one with the actors.
Right. Yeah. It just depends on what your project is, what your role is. And
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, some guys get really buddy buddy with their stunt doubles, and hang out with them a lot, become friends with them many, many years. A lot of actors will just, if they find a really good double, they will, just hang on to that guy and bring that guy with them. If they're, facially they look good and they jive with them personally, they'll just want them to come wherever. So I know The Rock, he has his cousin double him, Tanaway. Their family, and Tanaway goes everywhere with him. So it's pretty
yeah.
cool.
Yeah. No, that is neat. And it makes sense, right? If you work well together with somebody, I guess why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah, just keep that rhythm going. And it's and our game, our business is such a trust game, where you have to trust that person to do a good job and not to get hurt, not to make it dangerous. And a lot of the times the as a stunt double, you hear about actors doing their own stunts, and to a degree they do, but a lot of the times the stunt double will set everything up. So they'll have rehearsal days beforehand, and the stunt double will do that stunt over and over and over again, making it super safe, making it look like the director wants. And then the actor will come in and they'll spend a couple days, or depending on how big the scene is, but they'll spend some time rehearsing it as well. And that actor, or sorry, that stunt double will talk to that actor quite extensively and how to do, what to move, tell them, you put down your right hand here first and then use your left hand to do this. And so there's a lot of good communication and a lot of good trust that goes on with those between the actor and the stunt double for sure.
Yeah. So I guess this is kind of a good segue to stay in kind of the behind the scenes. Like looking at IMDb, right, for different movies, it lists different things: stunt coordinator, stunt performer. One of them I noticed is stunt rigger. Exactly does that mean?
Well, stunt riggers, they came into our world maybe a decade ago, maybe a bit longer originally, probably longer originally, but really came to the forefront, close to a decade ago. So, in a nutshell, to describe what they do is, if you see, like movies like Superman, where he's flying in the air, or any kind of a lot of those hero shows that we see, like all the Marvel guys, the fights that they do, and you see a body that's flying through. A lot of that is done by stunt riggers. So we wear stunt harnesses. They're made by Climbing Sutra. A lot of them are. That's kind of our go-to uh, harness. They're out of Las Vegas, and they started in the world of Cirque du Soleil. And for people that have been to a Cirque show, you kind of understand, like they're constantly in the air, these people. So a lot of those that kind of started Cirque du Soleil, and then the stunt world kind of got a hold of that and found out where they were getting these and how they were made. And so we started to get them, and then kind of was the birth of the rigging. The riggers, like our riggers in Vancouver, a lot of them come from the mountain climbing world. And so they're very familiar with knots, ropes, safety lines, how to hook up safety lines, how to like how to have two lines and one's not in the way. This all just the complications of rigging. So basically what it is just anytime somebody we call it's almost like human puppeteering. We kind of call that's kind of a nickname, a little bit for some of the guys up here. They're basically human puppets, like I'll put on, if I'm doing a ratchet or something, and so I'll put on my jerk vest and they'll hook me up and they hook up all the mechanics to it and they hook up the cylinders and they put the pressure into the cylinders, the air pressure into the cylinders. And so they're really an integral part of the stunt community. They help us do our jobs safely. And quite often they are the safety line as to how whether we walk away from that gag or not. Right. So they become very, very important. And for the most part, like all our guys in Vancouver and in Calgary are phenomenal. Just great guys. They've integrated into our culture. And a lot of them do stunts as well. Some of them don't, some of them do. So it's a mix mash. But they're all great guys and super important in our world. It's created more jobs. In a nutshell, I feel it's created more jobs for stunt performers to be able to do those things that somebody can sit down on a piece of paper and write, and then we create it. So,
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. 'Cause, I feel like that's just another thing. If you see it on the credits, right, you just scrolls by, no idea what it means.
yeah.
It's not talked about really. If there's a movie premiere, they're interviewing the star and hey, how did you do this and how did you do that? And I
Yeah.
feel like in the main media world, there's not a lot of attention
Mm,
given. Like we kind of said, you're the forgotten stunt guys, but that also just leaves a lot of because how many people too watch behind the scenes stuff? If you watch some behind the
yeah.
scenes stuff, right, you sometimes you see how they filmed things, and it'll dive into the stunts a little bit. but not everybody. Diehard fans are watching that stuff, but most people aren't. They just watch it. No, he's flying, and they have no idea how.
Yeah, they don't think of the how or why or what.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and quite honestly, a lot now, with the advancement of uh not AI, but special effect, visual effects, you don't like it's hard to tell, like, oh, did they pick him up visual effects and just fling his body that way? Well, there's a real kind of crossover, and it's really neat in what's happened in the last few years with special visual effects and special effects, and stunts, because a lot of the times I have to talk with this visual effects coordinator because he'll ask me, how far can you take this stunt? Like, so this director, he wants the guy to, he wants the car to roll 6 times, right? And you're like, wow, I can probably only get 2 or 3 out of it. And then this visual effects guy will take over. So he'll come over to me and say, how many times can you roll this car? And I'll say, well, I can roll it 4 times or 3 times. And he goes, okay, well, then I'll take over from that. And then he'll take over, which is a really seamless way of doing like a lot of the visual effects. I find that when I'm watching something and if they build it right from scratch, I can tell that it's not real. But if they take it where it's a real person for the first 20, 30 frames of that shot, and then it's taken over by the visual effects team, it can be definitely a little bit harder to for the human eye to understand, and it actually, it kind of goes together seamlessly.
yeah, and you could probably, if you're doing a scene, you could probably pick out where it happens because like, okay, I got 4 rolls in there, so like, I mean, maybe you could tell that somebody else is just watching on their couch because you had a part in
Yeah.
making it, or
That's right. Yeah, I mean, myself and my experience, and some people, some people in general with their experience can kind of tell. I mean, and that's part of our fun is watching movies and kind of going, well, I think they did it this way, or I think they did it this way, right? And that's really what part of what got me into stunts is just the fascination of like, how did they do that? And I want to know how they did that, right? And so I've been lucky enough over my career to figure that out. Like we're problem solvers, right? Like that's the way I describe myself when people ask what I do. Like, I solve problems, right? I create, somebody writes down a scene or an action that they want. I take that and I create that for them, but there's a lot of problems that you have to solve to make that happen. So and challenges and all sorts of different things. I mean, it's endless, but it's cool. It's challenging.
so even though you've been in the industry for a while, you've worked on, a variety of pictures and stuff in different fashions. Do you get points still where you're doing a movie and it's like, haven't encountered something like this, got to plan it out? Like, do you still hit road bumps where it's like, I've never done
Absolutely.
this type of a scene. I got to figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the beauty about our business. It's creative, right? And so there's so many minds and different stories and different ideas of what is reality, what isn't reality. So um you're always constantly challenged. I mean, it is always nice when you've done something like that might be similar to what you got challenged for that day, and that's where you draw on that experience from, say, a past stunt that you did 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, whatever, that's somewhat similar to the day that you have ahead of you, and you can draw on those things and those experiences. And it's not uncommon for stunt coordinators to talk to each other either. Like if I'm about to face a really busy day and I'm doing something that I haven't done before, first and foremost, I hire the people around me that that might have experience or that are aware of it. But I also might call a friend of mine who's got more experience, another stunt coordinator, and say, hey, this is what I got going on today. What are the things I should look out for safety wise? You've done this before, what would you have done different if had you been able to do this again, right? So we have those kind of conversations, just to look out for each other.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's back up a little bit to something you mentioned a few minutes ago about your interest in getting into the stunt world was kind of based on the curiosity, the why, the creativity. So when you became interested, like what were the steps you took to, pursue this and actually get into the industry?
Yeah, so I mean, it was relatively, I guess, difficult for me in the sense of where I live. So, I'm in Alberta, which is, I live in a small town in Alberta, and not a lot of movies get filmed up here. Not a lot of I guess TV or anything really up here. It's very, very small. So it was also, like everyone I told out this is what I wanted to do, they kind of looked at me weird, like, what is that? So, and to tell you the truth, I mean, the only way I knew about it was when I was sitting at home and was watching TV and I watched The Fall Guy and I watched Dukes of Hazzard and, 'cause I'm dating myself here, but, those were some of my favorite TV shows that I watched every day. And, they were as far an A-Team, like those shows were all pretty high action shows, in the day for network television. So that kind of got me thinking, well, how do they do that? And I was always an active kid and just wanted to do something active. I knew that after high school and for my career, I wasn't going to be a guy that sat at a desk and pushed paper and phone calls and that kind of stuff. It just wasn't me. So I wanted to, and I was very active as a kid and wanted to keep that activity level up. So yeah, I kind of started looking into it and found out like, yeah, it's a stunt guy, it's a stunt performer. So got into that. And then I was a springboard diver when I was a kid, and got in. It was competing across Canada, and then once I was finished that, I was looking. At that point, I was 17 when I finished my amateur career, and was also finishing high school, and was kind of looking to see what I was. And already had this in my head that I wanted to do stunts, and I was lucky enough that some guys and girls in my some older guys and girls in my diving club had gone overseas to do diving shows, so like live stunt shows. So that was like, when you go to the amusement park and you see the guys on the super high diving board and they jump off into the little thing of water. Like I know in Toronto we have Canada's Wonderland that has a show. Throughout the states they do a lot of traveling shows at the state fairs. So I got into the high diving world and I traveled for a couple summers, and that was for me to I knew that's what I needed to do to start to get my foot in the door. So I did that for a couple summers, made a video of me doing high dives like 80 plus feet into water, and 10-meter mini tramp, and those kind of things that the high diving shows. And then made a video and gave it to a guy in Calgary. And at the time, he was working on a television series called Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, which was a spin-off of the movie. And he gave me my first after I gave him my video and resume. And a year later, he called me and asked me if I wanted to come down for a day. So that was my day. I drove down. I think I left my house at like 3 or 4 in the morning, drove 3 hours to go down to Calgary, worked a day. I didn't know anybody down there. I worked the day. I worked with a guy that now I know very well. Asked him a bunch of questions while I was there, and then I drove home at the end of the day.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Um, and one thing I've noticed for the few people I've talked to that have done stunts is they all had a background in martial arts or dance, or you mentioned diving. And I think one of them, like the word he used was like, things that you have good control of your body.
Yeah.
So there seems to be a correlation that people who are interested in this stuff find their way into stunts, or stunts find them.
Yeah, and I think like I think there's a real misconception about stunt performers that, they're these crazy adrenaline junkies that just want to, have an adrenaline rush, and really we're that might have been true many, many years ago. It's just not the case anymore. Now it's athletes. Like that's really how I look at a lot of the younger kids that are coming in. They're athletes. They take care of themselves. They take care of their bodies. They train hard. They train in many, many different disciplines. I always say, just new stunt performers that are coming in, be well-rounded, right? Like everybody has everybody has a way that they got into the business. Like the high diver. And like you mentioned, there's lots of martial artists that get in with fighting. And then there might be the guy that was the the world champion dirt bike rider, freestyle guy. So those guys get a call to come in because all of a sudden there's a specific job that happens, and then they end up really liking it and pursue a career in it. And they do well because they've had a good base, and they're an athlete that knew how to take care of their body, how to train, and like you say, body awareness. And part of my job as a stunt coordinator is the coach. I'm the coach that comes in and tells you how to do it, what to do, and also I might be able to give you a few little hints if I'm familiar with, like if I hire someone to do a high dive, which I wouldn't, but if I did, it would be me. But I mean, anyways, like if I couldn't do it, if I couldn't do it,
Yeah.
I would be the next person to tell him how to do it. You know, um, you- so as a coordinator, you jump into that coach role, I guess you'd say. That's the
Yeah.
way I look.
So, like let's take a show like Riverdale. I personally didn't watch it. My wife did. But
Mhm.
like you were the coordinator for a few seasons on there. Were you able to you picked your own team, like I want these people to do the stunts, or did they give you like these are 10 stunt people, work with them, figure it out like
No, no, as a stunt coordinator, you hire the people that you want. So you're responsible for that. So I hire the best person for the job in general. Um, so it's whether it's the best double that has the skill set. You as a stunt coordinator, you always have to look after. You're kind of in a weird place because you have to look after production and service production and do a good job for production, but also have all your peers, right? And so you have to look out for them and look out for their safety, look out for their well-being. So there's a lot of the coordinator's kind of in a really weird position. Excuse me, but yeah, I'm fully in control. For the most part, I hire who I want. So in the case and perfect example, what I was talking about earlier about stunt doubles or traveling with actors. Sometimes I'll be on a show and a producer or somebody will come up to me and say, "Hey, look, this actor so and so wants to bring his stunt double with him." And then I'll go, yeah, absolutely. That's his guy. That's the guy he's been working with for 10, 15 years. I'm not going to say no. Let's do it. Bring him on board. So, you have to be a little flexible, but it's kind of common sense. Like you had said after I explained everything, you go, yeah, that makes sense that you want the same guy with you all the time, right? So,
right.
but for the most part, no, I hire different people. I look at the skill set. I look at what that stunt is, and I find that person.
So is there anyone else higher on the ladder than the coordinator? Like on the stunt side of things, obviously you've got the directors and the producers and all that, but on the stunt side, is the coordinator like the main man and then it trickles down?
That's right. Yeah. And now they have a little more and they have what's called a supervising stunt coordinator. So if you look at some of the bigger movies, like a lot of the Marvel shows will have they might have two fully qualified stunt coordinators, and then they'll have like a supervising stunt coordinator because there's probably, usually like two units going at the same time. He kind of has to overlay everything. He'll go to all the meetings. He will be the guy. But for the most part, the stunt coordinator is the top guy. Yes,
Yeah, awesome.
in the stunt
Interesting.
department. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Obviously the producers and the directors are in charge of the whole thing, and I'm sure if they want something, they'll let you know.
That's right. Yeah, if they want to see something, they come to me and explain it. Whether it's a verbal explanation or they show me storyboards or it's a YouTube video or for a reference or anything like that, and then I just try and recreate it.
Yeah, for sure. So you've done a variety of hockey films: Slapshot 2, Mystery Alaska, A Tooth Fairy, and a number of others. Did you have? I mean, you're from Canada, but did you have a hockey background growing up? Did you play hockey as a
Yeah,
kid?
yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. I played. I mean, a typical Canada kid. I played since I was 5 years old. Played all the way through till I was 20, I think. Like organized amateur hockey, and then for a few years after, just like, beer league. But played hockey, played pretty good level hockey throughout my career. So yeah, I was lucky enough. That was, I mean, my first feature film job was on a show called Mystery Alaska, where I doubled the lead actor, lead kid who was called Stevie Weeks. And so I don't know if you've ever seen it, but um, did a bunch of skating on there, took a bunch of hits, and that was my very first feature film. And I've done, yeah, like you say, I've done a bunch. I'm actually doing another one here up close to my hometown. I just started it last week, another little hockey show. I was in Russia for 6 months back in 2011. Did a hockey show there. So yeah, it's hockey is one of those weird things. Like, there's a lot of people that play hockey up here, so it was never a niche that I could really kind of attack and be like, I'm the only hockey guy, because I'm not the only hockey guy. Um, but when I did, I enjoyed it and I did a good job. So I was lucky enough to work on a few for sure.
Yeah. So is that, I mean, pretty much you were the guy doing the skating. So when all the shots, when you couldn't see the main actors' faces, it was you stunt guys.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So yeah, like when they're taking any big kind of big hits or blasts, on Slapshot 2, I was just an indie skating guy, and the Hansons hit me a few times. They're they're awesome guys, by the way. They're every bit of what they are. Like, what you see on the screen is exactly what they are. They're just like three cool dudes. Two of them are brothers, and then the other one was like a best friend, and they've made their whole existence in life has been the Hanson brothers. It's incredible. It's incredible. Like, they've
Yeah.
made their whole life of being the Hanson brothers, which is really cool. But hockey's given me a lot throughout my life. And film just kind of helped me transition, and it was awesome doing I like doing hockey movies. I mean, they're fun. I wouldn't want to do them all the time. They're difficult. Um, in the sense of there's a lot of people on the ice at a time. You're constantly organizing a lot of people. You're in skates for 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day, which isn't comfortable. So but they're fun. Once in a while, they're fun for sure.
Yeah. I've never seen Slapshot 2, but I've seen the original many times, and it's a classic
Yeah,
hockey movie. It's hilarious. And yeah,
yeah.
I mean, they're just, they got their toys and they got their tin foil, and then, they're just,
They are like that very much. And just the nicest, nicest guys. Really,
yeah,
really, yeah, really just genuine guys. Just
that's
guys.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just hang
Yeah.
out, hang out in the dressing room, hockey playing guys.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's fun. It's kind of neat I mean, that's how they were on screen, but that's how in real life. And obviously, it's
Yeah,
easier to play a character when that's kind of your persona, that's you.
that's right. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'll have to check out the other movies. They've been on my list of movies to watch. I've never seen Goon either. I know
Yeah.
that's a
Goon's all
classic.
right. Yeah. I'm
Um,
right at the beginning. Yeah, I'm myself in the Goon. I'm right at the beginning. I'm in a fight with a guy. If you watch it, you'll see it. I'm in the first 5 minutes. I remember when that movie came out, I had a bunch of my friends text me like, "Is that you?" Yeah, that's me. Um, Mr. Alaska is surprisingly, Mr. Alaska has a little bit of teeth too. Like, I'm listening, with the whole Four Nations things that just happened. It was listening to a lot of podcasts and the Spit and Chicklets boys and stuff, and they were talking about all their favorite hockey movies. And it was obviously Slapshot is pretty much every hockey player's favorite show. But it was interesting to hear them talk about how much they liked Miracle and how much that was kind of their show down south, right? Versus ours is obviously Slapshot. Um, they also talked about Mystery Alaska a little bit, that they really liked that, which I thought was cool because, I mean, I didn't think it was really anything, but it's got a little bit of a good story. And the show that I did in Russia was actually, unfortunately, it's all Russian, so it would never come here, but it was a story. It was an autobiography about a hockey player called Valery Harlamov. So in the 72 Summit Series between Russia and Canada, he was kind of their main guy. He's like the Russian Wayne Gretzky. He was the biggest threat to the Canadians in that series, and Bobby Clark hacked him down with a two-hand slash on his ankle and broke his ankle, and I think God, I can't even remember. I think it was only in game two or something like that. It was pretty early in the series, but they knew he was a really good player, and they had to do something with him. And that's hockey was brutal back then, by the way. Hockey was really brutal back then.
Yeah,
I remember when I got the job, I rented the movies and rented the Summit series and watched it, and I was like, oh my God, like you cannot get away, you'd get thrown in jail to stuff that they were doing to these people on the ice, like with their sticks, and it was crazy, but fun
yeah,
to watch.
yeah. Mystery Alaska is also on my ever never ending list of movies that I need
Yeah,
to see someday. Miracle. I think what you said is true. Like I feel like a lot of people down here in the States, it's kind of like one of your favorite sports movies, favorite hockey
yeah,
movies. Before I did this podcast, I had like an only hockey podcast, and I got to interview one of the actors, Billy Schneider, who played his dad Buzz in the movie, and
yeah,
that was really cool.
yeah.
Because with that, I mean, most of them were hockey players, so they did their own skating.
Yes.
I think I'm drawing a blank on his name, Eddie, the Jim Craig the guy that played him, Eddie Cahill. I think he
Mhm.
had a stunt double. It was Bill Ranford, the goalie. I think was his
Yeah, I think so.
stunt
Yeah.
double, but
Yeah.
most of the guys didn't. They just did their own skating. They were all D3
Yeah.
college players or played in high school.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
I know
and
with a
that really, sorry to interrupt, but that really makes the film
yeah,
because it keeps you there all the time. You don't have to shoot a stunt double. You don't have to put an actor on a rig and push him around the ice because he can't skate. And he's never going to look like he just knows what like. He will never, as much as you teach him to skate in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, he will never look as natural as a kid that's been skating since he was 5. It's never going to happen. So
yeah.
as when a hockey movie is made, you have to be very, very careful, especially in Canada, because we just know skating and we know hockey really, really well, you know?
Yeah, I've seen some, people critiquing the Mighty Ducks and like different scenes where you can see a guy with a breakaway and he's right-handed, and then the shot changes and now he's left-handed, and then it goes back to right-handed. Like the stunt double,
Yeah.
one of them was right and one of them was left, and they didn't account for that. So
Yeah.
you can see the stick change, and most people who don't know hockey didn't notice.
Don't
But
notice.
if you know hockey, you're like, wait a second.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. All it's still a good movie though. Still a good
Yeah.
movie.
Absolutely.
So, what's and maybe this is hard to answer because you've done so much, but like, is there anything that sticks out as like the craziest stuff you had to do for a film?
Uh, gosh, as far as like a stunt or just being involved with it.
I guess more on the stunt side, like they ask you to
Yeah.
do anything and you're like, okay, well, like, this is gonna be interesting, but I'll give it a shot.
Uh, yeah, I mean, there's never, I got into this business to be challenged, right? So there's never anything that I'd never been nervous about doing or not turned down because I didn't think that. I guess the only thing I've turned down is because I don't have the skill set to do it. And what I mean by that is if I don't feel 100% confident that I can give you what you're asking, I will not take that job. So a common kind of thing for some new performers, and I won't pigeonhole new performers because the old guys know this, but just when you start in this business, you tend to, you're full of energy and you want to please and you want to be able to do everything, and you might go, oh, okay, well, you know perfect example, horseback riding. So you go out and you go on a couple trail rides and you feel comfortable on a horse and you put I can ride a horse on my resume, and then I call you, hey, says you can ride a horse. Can you come out and do this gag, or can you come out and ride a horse for me? Sure, I can. And they come out and they don't know how to put the tack on the horse. They don't know how to do anything, right? So it's really, you have to be really careful about what you say you can do. That would be my, some of the a quick kind of like lesson to new stunt performers. But as far as myself, the craziest things, I mean, I never really said no till I mean I did stuff. I was good in heights. I learned how to drive cars. I don't do a lot of motorcycle stuff. I'm not a motorcycle guy. I'm not a wheelie guy. I'm not a stoppy guy. I'm not that guy. I can ride a motorcycle. I had motorcycles when I was young, and so I can be the A to B guy down the street. Um, but the craziest thing I did at Inception was probably one of the crazier stunts that I did. Doubling Killian Murphy for when we only did a certain the whole movie wasn't shot here. It was only the winter scene towards the end of the show. And so I was in the scene where Killian and I think is it Leo? Yeah, Killian and Leo. No, Killian and the Asian guy. I can't remember his name. They're on a mountain and they start rappelling down this mountain and an avalanche hits and the Asian guy is above me and he cuts the rope that they're rappelling on so that they don't get beat up against the rocks from the avalanche and they fall. So we had to go, we did this. This is a perfect example of like vis effects and stunt taking over and stunts working together. So they choppered us up to the top of a mountain. Um, I think the mountain was probably 6,000 feet, I think 5,000 feet. I'm trying to remember in feet versus meters, but we sat up there the whole day, and the stunt riggers, they set up two lines. One we rappelled down about 30 feet, and then they had another line for us, and that had 30 feet of slack in it. So that was just dangling, and then a hard stop mount at whatever, I guess 60 feet. So we went down 30 feet. The director and the stunt coordinator in a helicopter came up beside us, probably like they weren't far from us. They were like maybe 30, 40 feet from us, filming us and really hard for us to communicate. I was the bottom guy, so I was really just along for the ride. But they flew up and they called action, and my buddy pulled the cord, and we fell. We were 1,000, like we were only 1,000. Actually, we were only 1,000 feet up. I should correct myself. I think we were only 1,000 feet up. We were 1,000 feet up, and we fell 60 feet or 30 feet down, free fall, just free falling. And then what caught us was climbing rope, static line climbing rope caught us and stopped us. And I think we did it once, which was good enough for me.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that was
yeah.
probably, yeah, I mean, that was definitely like, that was probably my first situation of like, if something goes wrong, I will die. Like
Yeah,
there's no ifs, ands, or buts. That was the first kind of like most of the time, you go to work and you're going to get hurt, or if something goes wrong, you could really get hurt. But that was the first time in my career that I had been faced with like, okay, if something goes wrong, I'm probably going to die. So yeah,
yeah.
you try not to think about those things though.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're just kind of nonchalant about it. It's funny. I mean, in a way that comparing careers, right? Like you go to work, and that's a thought you have. Like the rest of us, we go to work, and what's the
Traffic
worst thing
sucks.
that the traffic sucks, and you're thinking like, well, gee, hopefully everything goes all right, and I don't fall 1,000 feet to my death.
Yeah.
Um, so just obviously different career paths
Yeah,
and
and
choices.
people look, and that's why people look at us like we're crazy, but it's not really about that. It's, like when you think about being an athlete, what are athletes? They're constantly put challenges in front of them, you know. Our challenges just happen to be from somebody else's brain. You know, a writer will sit down and write this stuff and we bring it to life. So,
Yeah, right. And obviously the pictures wouldn't look as good if you didn't have people that were willing to take some risks. And I
yeah.
mean, it just like you said, especially nowadays with the visual effects, CGI, and all that. It's awesome that we have that technology, but stuff that
Mhm.
is pure CGI with no real, it's just like you said, you can tell. And it's cool, like in the some of the new Star Wars when they took like I think it was Grand Moff Tarkin, and
Mm.
they because the actor was dead, and they just CGI'd him in there for about a minute conversation. Like that's neat
Yeah,
that they can do that,
it is.
but you can tell that it's not a real person.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's still a long ways, and I don't know if it'll ever be. And it depends on who you talk to. Whether there's the people that like the technology, and then there's the people that absolutely hate it. I'm in the middle. I there's a it's good. It's created more jobs, and it's also made our job safer
Yeah,
for
for
sure.
sure. Yeah. So before we wrap up, I just have one curiosity question. Hanging on your wall, is that a jersey or behind you on?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's my jersey from when I went to Russia. Um,
Okay.
so they made so yeah, that's it's a hand knit wool sweater that they made for the team that was playing. So like I said, it was about Valery Harlamov, and it was an autobiography. So they kind of went through his whole life, as it wasn't just about the Summit Series, but it was about his life as a hockey player. So it kind of went his younger life, and one of the teams he played for was they call it the Seska, which is the highest tier of, like, it's hard to explain, but in Russia, it was still communist, so they really took all their hockey players and put them on one team, and that's who is essentially who we played. But that's the sweater that they would have worn at that Seska team. And so after the movie was done, they gave myself and my guy, I brought a friend of mine with me, Brad Turner, who was drafted and played semi-pro hockey and played for Team Canada. So he helped me a lot with a lot of the hockey coordinating. So they gave him and I our jerseys and our jersey numbers before we left. So I made sure I put it in a box. It's pretty special. It's probably the most amazing jersey that I've ever put on. Like it just feels awesome.
Yeah. No, that is really cool. And it's cool
Yeah,
that they gave it to you because you hear stories that people have to sneak stuff off set because nobody's going to give it to them. So
yeah,
it's nice that they just gave it to you, and
that's right.
you got a little going home gift to hang on your wall.
That's yeah. Oh yeah, great. It's funny. And it's so funny too because funny you mentioned it, the going home gift. I literally just made 2 weeks ago. I sat down and took all my pictures and made a book. Finally made like a book I could look through because I've just been, like you take so many pictures, you download them on the computer, and then you kind of forget about them.
Yeah.
So 11 years later, 12 years later, I finally sat down and decided to make a book so I can, look at all the cool things I got to do when I was there.
Right. That is something that's easy to put off. Like once they're on the in the cloud on
Oh,
your iCloud or whatever you got, Google Photos, whatever it
yeah,
is,
yeah,
it's kind of like, oh, I got to make a photo book, and years pass, like you said.
yeah,
You just got
yeah.
to sit down and do it. I know I have like photos from different things where I've just got them sitting in a pile and I haven't touched them, and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Crazy.
yep.
That's crazy.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you hopping on and learned a lot, which is one of the things I hope to get out of this. I hope people watching find it interesting and to kind of learn how the stunt world works and the
Yeah.
relationship between stunts and visual effects and everything else. So I appreciate you hopping on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I'm always willing to you know, educate some people about our profession. It's a great profession. It's given me so many amazing memories. I mean, I've traveled around the world. I've traveled across Canada. I've traveled Europe. I've been very fortunate. Met a lot of different people, done a lot of cool things, seen a lot of cool places, and it was what I was put here to do, and I'm very, very lucky that I get to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for listening. Please stay tuned for more episodes soon.